I'm not even gonna try on that last name, Stevie. I'm gonna get butchered.
Lamarca?
You got it. Exactly what it looks like.
You know what? I should just sit on the sidelines. We'll just let Stevie do this. Like, I don't. What do you need me for?
Dude, I've got
It's
because
pretty phonetic, dude. Like Lamarca.
Hey,
well, where I'm at in Maine, because I'm so close to Canada and French speakers, I've gotten like La Marche, La Marche. I've gotten it's like,
Yeah.
nope, La Marca. It's exactly what it looks like.
that's exactly what it looks like.
America.
Yeah,
America.
exactly.
That's like the Benoits.
Yep. The Benoits.
Benoit,
Nope, Benoit.
Benoit.
I remember
Benoit.
I was in Canada Bear Camp. I was a little guy, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they were having this conversation about these famous deer trackers, from the Northwoods, and they were talking about the same people, just pronouncing it different. And it was like, no,
Yep.
and they're like kind of arguing over it, and it like took them longer than you would expect to realize they were talking about the same family.
That's really funny. It's funny it took them so long. Like Benoit and Benoit are so.
Yeah.
It's not like it was two
Yeah.
whole different names. It's like you think that would have clicked quick.
I think there was a lot of Labatt's Blue involved that night too. So.
Oh, that'll do it. Yeah. Yeah. I was actually talking to Lanny earlier today.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
I remember the first time that he had come up to Woodstock, up to Hunstock, and it was late night, and he hadn't eaten much, and who was it? Somebody had said something about, hey, you got any venison or this, that, and the other thing? Because we were the only ones camping at that time, right? And everyone was like, hey, like, do you guys have any venison? So it's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we're cooking blue venison on a grill, and we're all sitting around like camp, right? And we're all sitting around the steaks, and we're all eating blue venison. You remember that, Stevie? We're sitting at the picnic table.
I remember that night. I was sick as a dog that weekend.
Oh, that's
And,
right.
that was a late night, and I woke up. We were sleeping in a wall tent, and I just couldn't sleep, man. Like I couldn't breathe. I'm coughing. Like I shouldn't even have been there. Pretty sure I had COVID, but I wake up the next morning. These guys are still sleeping, and I wake up and I'm like, I got to get out. Like I just got to get moving. So I got up. I left camp and I drove to town to get some coffees and stuff, some breakfast sandwiches, so we didn't have to cook that morning. And I'm coming into the bottom of the hill there, coming up to the farm, and I see this car like kind of driving like he's lost or whatever. So I went with Vermont plates, and I went to pull over. I'm like, oh, this guy's looking for hunt stock. He's probably lost. Like, I'm gonna follow me, So I pull up alongside him, and the window goes down, and there's Laney. This is like 6:00 in the morning, and I'm like,
yep.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you know where you're going.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah, that is one of those, especially, the hunt stock shows is one of those like pinch me, I'm dreaming. You go, you enjoy, you hang out with everyone. For me, I'm, talking Woodman Arms and Guns all day. And at the end of the day, I'm sitting there with, Lanny, Rick Labby. I'm just hanging out with the boys and a whiskey. I'm just like, I can't believe this is what I do. This is nuts. Cool.
And not leaving too. It's one of those shows where you stay right there on site. It's not back to the hotel or the Airbnb and then go to a restaurant for dinner. Like once you pull in there, you don't leave, unless that one morning I left because I was sick. But usually you pull in there at the start of the weekend and you don't leave till Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no, I found that the guy in the mirror tend to overserve me, so I had to stay anyway. So yeah, he has a way of doing that. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, though. I mean, let's be honest, John. I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way,
Well, that's the thing. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, so like when I go do those shows, that's like I'm out. I'm finally out, and I'm with the boys. I'm doing the thing. It's just like usually it sneaks up on me. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's like being in deer camp. Sometimes, you never sleep and you're up early and you're just having fun and you drink too much. I don't know how many times I've been in the deer stand after being in camp and you're like, huh.
Yeah, the first night at camp is a wash. Every time.
I wish I was home.
Yeah.
I wish I was home.
Oh my goodness. But
well,
so I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, no, thanks for joining us, man. We really do. Why don't we just kick this thing right where it needs to be in 4-wheel drive? Why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is John Lamarca. I live in Maine. I do a lot of stuff in the outdoor industry. I'm a writer for the Maine Sportsman magazine. I am a registered Maine guide and own a business doing that, doing, all basically if it exists for guiding, I do it. I do moose, I do bear, deer, I do beaver trapping, ducks, the whole thing. And then what most people know me for is I'm the director of engineering and the director of sales and marketing for Woodman Arms Muzzleloaders. So basically, what I do is by day I design guns, and by night I guide and hunt. So that's kind of the synopsis of what I do.
Oh,
What?
great podcast. Thanks for joining us, John. We
Yeah.
really
So you guys have
appreciate
a good
it.
one.
Yeah.
Dude, that must be a rough one, huh?
Dude, I gotta tell you, my wife is really funny. So two things with that. Like I kind of give that, you go to any dinner party, and most guys are sitting there like, oh man, work, and then they're, John, what do you do? And I tell them, they're like, oh fuck you. So I get that a lot, and I get like, Anastasia's my wife's name. She's like, I don't worry about the women hitting on you. When I tell guys what I do, oh, I guide and I design guns, and all the boys are like, oh, really? You know what I mean? She's like, I'm not worried about the girls. I'm worried about the boys. You know what I mean?
You have a lot of best friends, huh?
I have buddies like you wouldn't believe. But yeah,
Uh,
so that's what I do. I got involved with Woodman Arms. It would be about 2.5 years ago now. So before I worked at Woodman Arms, I did automation engineering. So robots that build things. So I did that, and I guided at the same time, and I also worked at LO Bean part time because I had an aspiration. I made a plan. I guess it'd be 7, 8 years ago now. I didn't mind my job, but I knew it's not what I wanted to do, and basically made a plan. I want to be in the outdoor industry, and I want to be an engineer with what I'm most passionate about. Fast forward 4 years, Mark Woodman on the Facebook page, which I now run, but before obviously I ran it, Mark had it, and it was didn't do too much on it, and he just put a post on there that said, "Hey, does anyone know how to use SolidWorks?" And SolidWorks is the program that I do my design engineering in. It wasn't an official job posting. It wasn't anything like that. He literally was just, posting as if he texted to a buddy, "Hey, anyone know how to use SolidWorks?" Like on a Facebook post. So I reached out, and I contracted with him for a little bit, and we really hit it off very well. Kind of the meshing of the worlds, because he'd had engineers before, but kind of the generic, Poindexter kind of thing. It's like an engineer would design something, but then an outdoorsman would look at it. It's like, well, sand's going to get there, and that's not going to work. This is going to break. This is going to be loud. Where I guide and I hunt, and I have the ability to do the engineering. It was a very easy mesh because the stuff I design, I mean, I'm in it. I do tracking. I do all that stuff. So I get, hey, I can't make it this way because it won't work. And unless you have that knowledge, it just wouldn't work that way. So I contracted for a while, and I said, "Hey, Mark, why don't we make this, a full-time gig? I'll, do the engineering, I'll do all that stuff." And fast forward, here we are now.
so I guess my question is, what is Woodsman's Arms, and what makes Woodsman's Arms what it is?
Sure. So, kind of the story behind Woodman Arms is Mark Woodman, the owner. He is an avid hunter out of New Hampshire. He's and he's always had an affinity for muzzleloaders. He's always just loved them. And it was 2008, and I'm not going to name brands because I don't believe in stepping on the backs of other brands to get ahead. But there
No
was
need.
he had several muzzleloaders, and they all had one reason or another he didn't like them. Too heavy, not accurate, cheaply made, made of stainless steel but still rusted. There was no good muzzleloader. And Mark basically, the American dream kind of story, said, you know what? I think I can do something better. Caveat, him and his father own a precision machine shop anyway. So not only did he have this idea, he also had the machines and he had the capability to do it. And then I don't know if you've ever met Mark personally. He is savant smart. He is extremely intelligent. And I've been in the manufacturing world for 10, 15 years. I used to work for Old Town Canoe. And he is the best I have ever seen at what he does. It just clicks. He just has that mind. But anyway, so 2008, he had the idea. 2011, he had the first working prototype. In 2012, he established the company, and basically has never done any advertising really until I came on board. And it was all word of mouth. And at the end of the day, what it was is it was a gun that is made by outdoorsmen, by guides. Timmy Bulldog, he's a guide and obviously a phenomenal outdoorsman, said, "Hey, what do you want for the best rifle for what you want to do?" And this is what happened. This right here is the Woodman Arms G3. For those listening, I have a gun rack behind me. It's like, this is my desk. Get yourself a job where you require a gun rack. So, but yeah, that is really how it all started. It's the American dream story. I have an idea, and he went with it, and it worked. So that's how that happened.
That's not, and what makes them so like actually special, because they're not actual muzzleloaders in the fact of that they're actually smokeless.
Correct. So basically, what makes them up until when did we release them? About a year ago. The G2s, the version 2s, which a lot of people have, those weren't smokeless rated. But what makes them above and beyond better than everything else is everything tip to tail what they're made of. So it's all 400 series stainless, and why 400 matters from a metallurgy, from kind of thing. No, not all metals just because it says stainless are the same. Just like if you say wood, well, is it oak? Is it pine? Is it like there's different grades of wood? There's different grades of metals. 400 series stainless is actually extremely strong in its food grade. So extremely corrosion resistant. I mean, if you look at any stainless appliance you have or anything, it's probably a 400 series. And then we nitride over it. And nitride coating not only gives it the black matte finish, but it also is more corrosion resistant. So it is genuinely hard to corrode these guns. I mean, it's not impossible, but it is extremely hard to do it. In fact, when you may have heard the adage about them that you don't have to clean Woodman Arms muzzleloaders, I was told that from a company standpoint, best practice when you're done shooting, throw a swab through it. That's best for it. My G2, which I had before the G3, I still haven't cleaned it. I have shot it. I've shot a pile of deer with it through the snow. Never cleaned it. Never done it at all, and it still looks brand new. Another thing that we did is the weight. It's only 5.5 pounds. In the fore end, there's a little swell or a reduction, if you will.
Mm.
But that is where it balances. And why that's important is when you're walking through the woods. I mean, I have my bar, my MK3. This is what I track with. I have a 308 bar MK3, and it's just heavy. It's bulky. The charging handle is right in my palm. I'm actually going to find a way to file that down. But like, this is made for the guys who are humping around the woods 10, 15 miles a day doing what we do. Um, and I guess the last thing that would be, I guess, two things. We use match grade barrels. So this is a 24 inch version. It's a 45 caliber. I used to say that it was good to about 300 yards because I shot one this year at 220 yards, and basically is the first time I ever shot something far enough where there was a gap of time between when you shoot and when the bullet hits. So it was like boom, bap. I was like, oh, that was really cool. Dropped in its tracks. That was 220. And then there was another fella in New Hampshire who was like, oh yeah, I sit at the edge of a bog and I hit him at 300. And I was like, okay, so it can do 300. So I'm at the show in Pennsylvania, and this guy comes up, and I want to say he was from Ohio. I could have that wrong, but regardless, he comes up and he's like, "Oh, I have one of these muzzleloaders. I had a special scope made. I found out all the ballistics and everything, and I sit at the edge of my field. I shot one this year at 419 yards." And I'm just like, Jesus, dude. It's kind of humbling to be the guy. Be in the company, design them. I know this thing in and out, and this dude's way better with the gun I designed than than I am. so, so it's crazy their capabilities, and not to probably the biggest thing people care about is it's watertight.
Mm.
So that everyone hears the adage, keep your powder dry, keep your powder dry, keep your powder dry. We actually did a test, and we're going to record it because people don't believe us, but we did. So Timmy Bulldog took one, loaded it completely, put it in a kiddie pool for a half an hour, took it out, boom, no problem. That's no duct tape
Mm.
over the end. Because of the internal hammer system, there's no crevices for the water to really get through and get into that powder charge. Kind of as a little deer hunting story, I had my version 2, and I was tracking a deer, and I'm down in a bog, and you're down. It was like probably 3 inches of snow, so you still have some of the grass poking up through the snow. Real fresh track. I know I'm right on this thing, and I get near where the trickle kind of is. It's probably a 3 foot across, a stream going down the bog, and I go to take a step on a piece of swale grass covered in snow that looks like everything else I've been, stepping on. And, apparently under that swale grass was more of that river. And I dunked my entire body in up to my hip. The entire gun went under the water. I'm cussing, swearing. I said, "Well, I'm in it anyway." I cross the river. I pop up. It's like 7 or 8 degrees. It's a cold day. My wool pants freeze. The gun has a glaze of ice all over it. About 20, 30 minutes later, I'm walking, the ice on the inside of my pants, I start to bleed or it's chafing my legs. And I finally catch up to the deer clicking my friggin' pants together because they're wool. Boom! Shot the deer. Deer drops. It was kind of cool. The ice that had with a glaze of ice on it kind of shattered out like a freaking scene from Frozen. the deer drops, and that was that. And I was like, "Holy crap!" I mean, I literally had to blow mud out of the peat. Like they just perform.
What is the bonuses of having a smokeless powder over any other powder inside of a muzzleloader?
A couple different things. At the end of the day, the answer is energy. So, for Blackhorn 209, I run 77 grains of Blackhorn 209 and I'm getting roughly 2,300 feet per second, 2,300 feet per second. You can use 47 grains of smokeless powder, which also smokeless powder is cheaper, it's more readily available, and there's more options, and you're getting similar, if not more, velocity. So it's just at the end of the day, there's a reason why modern rifles use the powder they do. It's just better. But because we engineered the version threes of ours, it's the only muzzleloader that we know of on the market that is smokeless ready. A lot of the other ones, you have to buy it and then you have to upgrade it. All you need from us is tell us, hey, it's a smoke. We're going to run smokeless. It's a different breech plug. But other than that, you just throw the right breech plug in it and you're good to go.
Well, it's kind of funny is a lot of manufacturers when you start to talk about doing smokeless, they literally shun upon it. Like it's
Yep.
like a huge thing. There's a lot of like conversions, and there has been years that I've kind of sat in the back burner and kind of thought of making a smokeless muzzleloader. But when you start talking to these manufacturers, and the things that have kind of stopped me of doing the thing was that they shun upon it. They're like, that voids warranty, you can't do this, you can't do that, if something happens that's on you, blah 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 blah. And there's a lot of conversions out there of 4570s and whatnot to convert into a 45 caliber smokeless, but
Hmm.
they literally will kind of badger on you, you know what I'm saying,
It
because
all comes
for
down
that
to
reason.
construction. It all comes down to construction. I mean, at the end of the day, the same reason Mark got into the game was because they weren't muzzleloaders in general are not made to the same kind of standards that my 308 is made. Because I get it, muzzleloaders, it's not as long of a season. So how many are you actually going to sell? Basically, Mark said, "Screw it, I'm going to make something that is just as strong and can withstand these pressures."
Well, and think of this like this. I mean, to be honest with you, if I was to have a muzzleloader, and these were the reasons why I was going to a smokeless. I love muzzleloader hunting in itself. It's probably one of my
Mm,
favorite things to do. And I live in a state where we can only shotgun hunt on public land, or my only lesser weapon is not the bow, it's a muzzleloader, right? So I said,
absolutely.
how about this? That I build myself a very fast, far shooting muzzleloader, smokeless, and then I can literally have one gun to shoot all my seasons, and that's my all-to gun. You're into it for a little bit of money, but you can literally hunt with it the entire deer season here. And when they started to say like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, like I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then found you guys, and I'm like, hold on, now we're
Mm.
talking real stuff here.
If you design them for the pressures, you absolutely can. I mean, I know Massachusetts is similar. They're shotgun or muzzleloader only. But when you start getting modern ballistics, modern powders, match grade barrels, the stuff that we have in ours, it's essentially a single shot rifle without brass.
Exactly.
Like that one guy shooting one at 400 yards, which is nuts. But like they're capable. They can do it. So basically, if the shooter can do it, it's doable. You know what I mean?
So why do they do it in a 45 caliber, or why is the push to a 45 caliber over 50 caliber?
Ballistics. So the
Okay.
velocities we're getting, and the velocities, the trajectory, and like the amount of drop, all that is just empirically better with a 45. In fact, I would say if it was legal everywhere, I'd say 40s are even better. They're faster and flatter shooting.
Are
Uh,
are you getting more of a blood trail out of a 45 than a 50? Because I think that that's like one of the negative things of guys that are muzzleloader hunting is the whole blood trail thing.
so So here's what I tell people because I get that question. I shot the one at 220 and there was no trail; it just died.
Well,
So I mean,
I get it.
at the end of the day, I mean, it's a single shot rifle. So if you put it where it's supposed to go, it just it folds. I mean, so if it can fold something in its tracks at 220, I mean, I really would not worry about it. I mean, the energy here actually. Here's another good story I got from Pennsylvania. I had a guy come up to me, and he's like, "Man, these things are amazing. I shot my deer this year. Let me show you." And he showed me a picture of his deer. It was a nice buck, and the entrance wound was like the size of a fist. And I'm like, but and there was no exit, which doesn't make sense. I
Mm.
mean, you guys know how bullets usually react in an animal. I was like, what the hell? And I'm looking at it, and he's looking at me. He's kind of smirking, like he knows something's up, and he knows that I know something's up. He's like, yep, I shot this deer. I went up, it dropped in its tracks. I shot it probably 20 yards away. I was still hunting. And I saw this wound and I didn't really know what the heck happened. He said he turned around. There's a paint can thickness maple with a hole through it. He shot through a maple tree into the deer. It still had enough energy to kill the deer. That is nuts.
Whoa.
That is nuts. So when you think of the ballistics and the velocities and the energy to go through a paint can thickness hardwood and still kill the deer, I mean, yeah, that's what they're doing.
And I mean, think about it. It's the difference, like the velocity aspect of it. It's like an arrow at that point. Like if you're going through things like that and still going through a deer, that's intense.
Yeah,
That's insane.
it's
And it was
crazy.
still one piece, right? Like the 45 caliber was still one piece.
I didn't ask him
Hmm.
if he found any shrapnel or whatever of the bullet. It
Yeah.
definitely, but when it was coming out of the maple, it clearly tumbled. That's why it was
Right.
such a big hole.
Right.
But I
Right.
don't know if he actually found the projectile. I didn't think to ask him that. I assume he did
That's
if there was no
Has to
exit.
be in
But
there.
anyway,
Yeah, it has to be.
it's somewhere in there. Yeah.
What are you getting for like a muzzle velocity?
Depends. If I'm shooting my 77 grains of Blackhorn 209, I'm getting like 2250.
Oh,
If I'm doing smokeless, I mean, you're talking 23, 24.
yeah.
So
You're
yeah,
you're
it's
in
humming.
center fired speeds, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah,
are,
it's humming.
are you shooting the just a regular projectile? Because I've known with some of the smokeless they have a little bit different of a projectile than
Mhm.
a regular traditional like sabot.
So it depends on what you're trying to do. So I use or what we recommend, basic plastic sabot, 45 cap, so 40 caliber bullet and a 45. Fury custom bullets, and they don't make clover leaves. They shoot the same hole. They really are very very well made bullets. I know a lot of people, and I get it because of the ease, but they're just not good. I use pellets and power belts. It's like don't throw. It's like that's like buying a Bugatti car and putting like unleaded crap like gas in it. It's like what was the point? You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get the performance that these are capable of if you're not putting good stuff in it. And the cost between a thing of power belts and Fury custom bullets are probably dollars different. I mean, why not? You know what I mean?
So when you talk the Furies, like those are more of like more pointed, like a rifle projectile, like that
Yep,
kind of.
copper
They,
coated.
I know what they
Absolutely.
are, but I'm saying like explaining it to everybody else to as far as like
Sure.
the
So
difference
basically,
between the two of them. You know what I'm saying? Instead of a chunk of lead, it's
mhm.
literally a rifle projectile instead of.
Sure. The best way I could describe it is if you look at the end of a cased bullet, the actual bullet, and if you were to imagine taking the bullet out of the case, more or less, that's what it is. It's a copper coated, it's a modern bullet. And because of that, you're getting the modern ballistics, and that's how you're able to do such accuracy and it's able to do so much. Because at the end of the day, it is using other than it's funny, my father, when I told him, which I come from a non-hunting background, I didn't start hunting till I was 18, but I went deep into it. He's like, "Oh, you're in a muzzle like musket ball?" I'm like, "I mean, you load it the same way, but no, everything else from there, no. Like everything is modern now." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, two on the wall.
Steve.
It's, "Oh, yeah, you're biting the thing and putting
Yeah.
patches of jeans in there." It's like, "No, Dad, no, I'm
Nah.
not."
It
So do you find So you have a recipe. If you use this projectile with this powder, you're going to get the best results. Like I know sometimes with even a rifle, right? I could have a Remington 700, and you can have a Remington 700, and yours likes Coralox, and mine likes Federal, whatever, right? And you
Yeah,
got to find that bullet that your gun likes.
sure.
You guys find that you're pretty dialed in where you're gonna find consistent results with what you recommend.
Absolutely. So we actually have on our website we have a load data sheet, and Mark and Timmy and myself and everyone we compiled because we get it all the time, and there's so many different black powders, and just like in the firearms industry, there's a new cartridge every year. There's new powder every year. So I'll be at a show or something, and someone will come up to me and say, "Hey, how many grains of insert random gunpowder would I need?" And I'm, dude, I don't know. So we did a list of like 15. The only ones I remembered are the ones I use. So like N110 is what we recommend. It's you can order it right on Midway to your house depending on where you live. But yeah, it's literally and it should be a starting point because again, like you said, we can have two of the Patriots and say, hey, 77 grains of Blackhorn 209, and yours might perform better at 75, and the other one might be 78 or something. It's just every gun is a little bit different, and that's any gun, not just our muzzleloaders, but they're definitely fantastic starting points. I know for me, it was right on the money. I took mine, looked at the load data, said, all right, N110, 47 grains, and it just hauled. Like I didn't have to change anything. So go team.
That's a good thing because then there's no guessing.
Yeah, or that's a lot of work trying to figure out on your own.
Well,
It's
well,
intimidating too. I mean, there's so many options. Hey, what primers do I use? What powders do I use? Which bullets? It's intimidating. So like to be able to say, hey, let's cut the chaff out. If you start here, it will
Mhm.
do what you want it to do. If you want to play with it from there, that's cool. But here's a good recipe to start with. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
and I think that people need a starting base. It's like trying, with turkey season coming, you're trying to pattern your turkey gun, and you're like, well, what round does this with this choke and this constriction and blah 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 blah, and you're all over the board. This
Yeah,
at least you have a starting point.
Yeah.
Shoot X, Y, and Z. Done. Here you go. You want to change from there? Then that's up to you. But at least I can buy a gun from you when it shows up. I can shoot it, put it on paper, and if I want to change things down the road, then so be it. But I
Yeah.
have a perfect working gun, and
absolutely.
that's one of the most important things when it comes to it.
Well,
Hmm.
plus with all the seasons and like being an outdoorsman, 12 months out of the year, who has time for that, right? You,
I get it. I mean, I load mine and throw it in my truck,
yeah.
and I take the primer out. I'm just saying, the primer's out. So in Maine, powders in it, bullets in it,
Hmm.
primers out.
Same,
That's
same
that's
here,
legal.
same here.
That's
It's not
legal.
loaded. Yeah, it's not loaded.
And you drive around, do the thing. I'll cut a track or like I shot a deer. I'm on the way to pick my boys up from daycare, and I'm going by and I see a deer, and I go knock on the door. Hey, can I have permission? I go in and whack the deer. Stuff like same thing with turkeys. It's like I kill half my turkeys from not literally from the road, but just driving around.
Yeah.
And it's just, who has time unless you're really into muzzle loading, which
Well,
until after I got this job, I learned there is some people very, very into muzzle loading.
Yeah,
it
uh,
reminds me of like when you go to the range and there's an old timer there and he's a big reloader, right? And he's playing with he's got the chrono out and he's got all these different bullets that he made. Like, dude, that's a hobby. That's like
yes.
a full blown, all your time is spent making those bullets and testing them and writing down the number. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, I have
No,
other shit to do.
I'm just looking to kill a deer.
Right,
Like, you know what I mean?
right,
Like,
yeah.
oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it's so you probably guys probably saw at the show. So we do the Patriot. But we also do we do refitting of barrels. So like you were mentioning, like if you have a Thompson Center Omega, if you have a Thompson Center Encore, CVA Paramount, we do rebarrel those ones for smokeless, or Remington 700 for smokeless. We rebarrel them. So keep that in mind. But not only do we do that, we also do builds. So we use like Kelbleys or Defiance actions, and we're making like 700-yard plus muzzle loaders. And like
mm.
yeah, that's that other world. You start getting into there, it's like I had a guy from Ohio buy one actually while at the show because he's like, oh, I have a family field. I turn to my right, I can see 480 yards. I turn to my left, I see 500, whatever it was, and I'm like, yeah, you want that one?
We could probably kill 10 deer and stay under 700 yards total.
So, ironically, so I shot 5 deer this year in Maine, and like between bow and everything like that. But I shot the one at 220. Other than that, if you added up the other 4, it did not equal 220. So,
But it's still cool though. If you know your gun does it, and in the target world, you know what I'm saying? Like, why not? If you're shooting it and having fun with it, and as a muzzle
Dude,
loader, like going back to a muzzle loader, like that's the
oh
crazy
yeah,
part to me. Like,
you know what I just thought of? I mean, how badass would one of those be for those primitive season, like early season, muzzleloader season out west?
you can't use
Oh, you
them.
you
can't?
can't
Oh,
use optics.
you
You can't
can't
use
Yeah.
use
optics,
optics.
or you have to use. I think Vortex is the one who makes it. They make a fixed 1 power, not one to anything. It's a 1 power scope.
Power, yeah.
So,
But
uh,
but the woodsman arm of the peep sight would be considered primitive.
yep.
Yeah.
Depends. It depends on the.
Depends.
It depends on the state. I know that a lot of guys what they're doing. So the 24 inch is our most common length, and that uses a button cut barrel. Our 26-inch has a cut rifle barrel, and that's just how the rifling is actually done. And with a cut rifle barrel, that has enough precision rather than using a plastic sabot and you putting the bullet in the sabot, ramming the whole thing down. You can do a swaging, which swaging is a fancy word for sizing a bullet. So you take the plastic right out of the equation. For easy numbers, let's say your bore is exactly 45. You would take, or 40, 40 is more common, take a 40, you would take a bullet that's like 0.401, so it's oversized, and you cut it down to size, and then you push that down the cut rifle barrel to make a perfect seal. And why that's important is you take that, you take the peep sight, and like, yeah, you're out elk hunting, and you see you know, if you can shoot a peep sight, caveat at 500 yards, but yeah, that kind of gun with that kind of precision and without the plastic sabot has the capability to do that.
Mm.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's absolutely. It's my when I had first learned about them a handful of years ago. Like the gentleman that was in camp was explaining how he had just converted one over and had made it, and he was shooting bears and this, that, and the other thing, and moose and whatnot. And I'm like, no way. And then so I had left bear camp and started to research the whole smokeless world and got into it. And like I was mind blown, and it was just a little bit overwhelming to be able to do it. And then what kind of scared me, like I had said earlier, is like talking to these manufacturers. So you sit down with these manufacturers and I say, all right, I want this gun, I'm going to convert it to smokeless. And then like the arms go up. Nope, nope, you can't do that. Nope, nope, don't do that. No, you can't do that. And I'm like, so when you and a lot of the times you're then, and that's what stopped me was
Mhm.
there's a lot of companies that do convert them,
Yep.
but that manufacturer says no. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? So it's a scare. It's a fine line,
It's
right?
got to be a
Because it's
liability thing too.
Yeah,
Like,
hundred
it's
percent.
a COA clause. You ever hear of those? Cover your ass clause. Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
they don't size them for it, so they say no. Which I get. I mean, that's the same reason our muzzleloaders, when we had the version 2, we didn't recommend smokeless powder because we didn't specifically size them for it. After I
Right.
got hired on and Mark and I redesigned it, well, now they're made for it. So of course, come one, come all, shoot smokeless, because we intentionally made it for that application. And again, like you're talking, like if you take a CVA Paramount, that's a roughly $1,000 gun, and then to have it rebarreled is another roughly $1,000. Ours is 990, good to go. So why would
Well,
you do
well,
that?
that's exactly the route that I was going to take. I was going to do a 4570 CVA,
Yep,
and
great gun.
literally, I mean, it's a great gun. They make a ton of companies do the conversions on them. Like, there's a lot of the formulas are already written in stone, but when you really start to crack into it, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, I guess, because I was
Mhm.
so nervous about going and doing it, and because it's like buying a Ferrari and then doing a motor swap on it, but it voids your warranty. So you're kind of like, I don't know. Do you really want to do it? That's kind of like
Right.
that was a feeling that I had gotten from it. So I was
No,
kind of nervous.
absolutely. It's daunting, especially where you're like, hey, there's people doing this, and then when you're talking to the guys who make it, and they're acting as if it's going to be a grenade. Like that's awfully close to your everything vital when you're doing this with a rifle when you have it shouldered. So you don't want that to go wrong. So I
Well,
get
and
it.
I think that the point that it kind of scared me too was I've had the situation of something like that happening. So I had been shooting a muzzleloader years ago. I was younger, and we were doing prone position shooting and sighting in a muzzleloader, laying down on a rug, and shooting and sighting in a muzzleloader. Well, the breech plug ended up stripping out of some sort. I don't know if I had tightened it down, not tightened it down enough, or whatever. The breech plug ended up blowing back, and then now you have lit gunpowder all over the place. So
Jesus.
you know what I'm saying? Like, this is my thing going into it, and then when everybody had kind of said whether I failed to do something or not, I don't know. I can't take it back to what it was, and then it was just a scary situation. We went to the
I get
manufacturer, and it was scary.
that is scary. Hey, can I have you guys do me a favor real quick?
Yeah.
My timer just went off. I have to go turn my maple syrup that's boiling off that I
Oh,
forgot to
awesome.
turn off. I'll be right back.
Oh,
Only if you send us a jar when it's done.
You got it.
That's so awesome.
Dude, I didn't know. That explains a lot, dude. I didn't know that's where that came from.
What's that?
When your face got burned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know. Now it makes sense.
Thanks. My brain too, I guess, right? That's what it is. No, it was a crazy experience. We were sighting in a gun. It was a friend's gun, and it was
Yeah.
nuts. It was super nuts, and it's one of those things that's scary. And that's when it would had gone to the whole smokeless thing and redesigning and because you literally have to take a gun and literally you make a different breech plug for
Yeah.
it. So they're literally taking it, tapping and dyeing it, and making the barrel fit for a smokeless scenario.
You know, a lot of guys, even with the cheaper muzzleloaders like CVA or whatever, like a Wolf, like we shoot, they buy a new breech plug like every 2 years. They're cheap. They're like $30.
What
I'm
is
back.
this?
You can buy a breech plug for like a
Right.
CVA breech plug. They're like $30-$40, and a lot of guys that are like the guys in Rhode Island are hardcore muzzleloader guys.
Yeah.
They'll buy a new breech plug like every 2 or 3 years and just start over with fresh threads just for that reason.
Mm.
And that all comes down to what it's made of as well. So even our breech plugs, the one that comes stock, and then you can buy ones that are made of 440 hardened stainless that last way longer.
Mm.
You know, it all comes down to materials. It just all comes
Is
down
there
to
a
how it's
bonus
made.
to doing that and upgrading the breech plug? Like, what is that equate
Well,
to?
length of life. So what that if you were to take a breech plug, say ours, and you were to cut it in half, it's actually not just a place to put a 209 primer in a hole. There's a 209 primer, there is a hole, but there's a channel. And so say you start with an orifice, a flash hole of point oh 0.03 or 0.035, which is common. Over time and stuff, it will erode. So go from 0.03 to 0.031, 0.032, 0.033. And so basically what you're doing is you're buying yourself time. If you buy better materials, is a longer period of time before that flash hole widens, and then you might over time, if it's a softer metal, your ignition might not be what it needs to be. Mm-hmm.
That's
I can
crazy.
get real nerdy with this stuff. It's funny.
No, and I think that it's something that talking about the breech plugs and changing it, because a lot of us, and not a lot of us, a lot of outdoorsmen, not myself included, because I shoot muzzleloader way too much. But when other guys, like, they're only using it for muzzleloader season, that might be, what's a muzzleloader season? 7 days, 11
Yeah,
days here. I
for
mean,
the
No,
average
it's
hunter.
minuscule.
Yeah.
Putting one
couple weeks.
shot.
And let's say you're one of the guys that you're a snow chaser. You're going all over New England. You're going to Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, all these places. Like, okay, maybe that's say you shoot a buck every time. Like you're Lucas. I don't know if you've ever met Lucas Benoit in Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a year. Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway, he shot $5. But you know what? That's 5 shots out of a muzzleloader. That's still nothing. Like it wasn't all muzzleloader, but you get the idea. Like even if you
Right.
hit every muzzleloader season, it's not 300 shots. You know what I
Well,
mean?
even if you're just sight, I mean, we're really sighting in. What do you in a 5 year span, putting 20 shots through a gun? I
Yeah.
mean, let's be honest.
I
It's
mean, my
really not that much.
at all. I mean, usually the way I do it is say I don't shoot. I will leave the charge because again, it's nitride coated in stainless steel. I leave the charge in there and then come next. Oh, I'm gonna make sure my zero's on. Boom. Okay, we're still on it. That's
Yeah, you can't do that with a regular muzzleloader. That's not an
Dude,
option
black
here.
powder.
Like,
He's blacked out.
yeah, he just blacked out.
Just can't see him through the
Oh,
smoke.
there he is. His phone timed out this time. Not his maple syrup. His phone
How's the
timed out
syrup
that time.
looking?
Oh,
Uh,
He went a little dead. So yeah, I mean it's sign language. Poor John. Technology.
He probably
He'll be
lost
right back.
Bluetooth connection.
Yeah, probably because he had a new one. But that's all right. But no, I mean it is right. I mean, how many shots do you really have over a long period of time to be able to put through a muzzleloader, even if you're shooting that much? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not. It's very
Yeah.
minuscule.
Sorry,
You know.
boys, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, we're here. Yeah,
How's
yeah.
the maple
Good.
Yep.
syrup looking?
Someone called me and it just
Oh,
fucked the whole thing.
they saw you were,
So
they
Oh,
saw
we're
you were
good.
live. They were like,
Yeah,
"Yo, let's call him
yeah.
while he's
let's
podcasting."
call him while he's
That's
podcasting.
not. I would not be shocked if one of my buddies was just like, "Hey, you're on here. I'm gonna call you." Thanks, dude. Like,
So we had a good friend of ours over on Instagram. Um, he was asking, forgive me for my ignorance, but are y'all doing anything different on rifling the barrels for muzzleloaders? Any different than they say for a center fire?
so we have different rates of twist,
Mm,
and so basically, what for the this is what I say because this is another one of those rabbit holes. For anyone who considers himself like myself included, who's a hunter, and you're out there and you're using it to hunt. For the 45, for instance, you want the 1 in 24 twist. However, we also do a 1 in 18 twist. And what that essentially does is that twist rate, if you're using a heavier bullet,
mm.
you want a different twist rate. However, where we've already done the math and I should say the math, we've already done the testing and we have found that, a 250 grain bullet out of a 45 caliber, the 1 in 24 is more than sufficient and it hauls. But if you're just like, man, I really want to push a 300 grain, a 310 grain 45 caliber bullet, then I would consider changing the twist rate. But the way I describe it is if you are at a point in muzzle loading where you're considering twist rates, you're already in deep enough to know what you
Right.
want. If
Right.
you're just like if you're like me and maybe like you guys, I can't speak for you, and you're just this thing is a meat stick to put food in the freezer,
Mm.
just go with the one we recommend.
Yeah.
That is the easiest because that between that and velocities, like I could do an entire podcast about the finite details that people would fall asleep to, but there's three guys in the nation that would eat it up. You know what I mean? So
So,
Muzzleloader is one of those ones, I guess, because there is like a pretty large spectrum of grain choices, right, for your projectile. Most centerfire rifles, right, like a 30-06, you only got a couple to choose from there, right? The only place you see it a lot is like 243 guys, because you can go from a 70 grain to like 110. So
right,
there's more of a variable there for like a faster or slower barrel.
burn rates.
But
Yeah,
most center fires, it is what it is. You're going to shoot a 165 or a 185. That's it. You know what I mean?
right.
so when you I mean, to be honest with you, so that say that gun that you shot 220, what was the
Yep.
barrel twist on that gun?
1 in 24. That's the one that we recommend.
So a 1 in
So
24 with the
yeah,
recommended powder and shot.
I,
What do
I
you
am the
need anything else
I'm the
for?
poster boy. You don't. I mean, that's the thing. I'm the poster boy for you get the gun, go on the website, look at the load data chart, put it in, plug it in, you're done.
Well,
Because mine literally liked the 77 grains of Blackhorn. So
the twist rate's more based on the weight of the projectile, though, right? So it's like it has
correct.
something to do with the distance. Where if you shot the wrong twist rate for the size of projectile, you might not get that 300-yard accuracy. But as long as
Right.
you're shooting the right twist rate for the standard load size,
Mm.
you're going to get maximum performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better. So, what you might find is, say you start, which again, people love to do the recipes and stuff. Say you change the twist rate, I guarantee if you change the twist rate but do the same recipe, I bet it's not going to act the same way. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
just the way
It
it
was
goes.
funny when you put your thumb up. It
I don't
did
know why
thumbs
it
up.
does that.
It only does it with guests though. I can't get it to do it.
What happens?
You had like a little bubble popped up with the thumbs up in it.
I don't know. It's
Interesting.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh, cool. All right.
you're just that guy.
So we are geeking out a little bit, and you brought up something that I didn't really know when we saw you at Harrisburg. The difference between the pelletized powder and the loose powder.
Yes.
with there's a lot of waterproof and inconsistencies and stuff like that. You want to talk about that a little bit because I
I
had no
would
idea.
love to. I would absolutely love to because I get this question all the time. And just like you said, it's ease of use. I get it. You go, I'm going to put 2 pellets, 3 pellets, throw a power belt down, I'm done. It's, keep it simple, stupid. I respect that. However, there's a couple different reasons why you don't want the pellets. So the reason you don't want the pellets is the size is consistent. However, when you put the bullets down the barrel, when you're ramming it down, they are very, very brittle. So sometimes they break. And why that matters is if you have, we'll say an inch. We'll say if you put 2 of those pellets in, let's say you have an inch of powder of those pellets and then the bullet on top. And then the powder collapses because it's in a cylinder, but then the force collapses. You're now seating your bullet deeper, which changes the trajectory of your bullet. Which they're very susceptible to doing that because they're so brittle. Another thing that they do, and this is what you and I were talking about, is those things are little sponges. They really are. So even if you have a loaded muzzleloader, and you then at the end of the day you pop the primer out, you throw it in your truck, it's going to condensate. That's physics. That's how it works. The Pyrex pellets will actually draw that moisture past the bullet as it's evaporating and into the pellet. Now, most guys don't always experience adverse effects because it gets moisture in it, and then hopefully by the time they go hunting again, it's had enough time, hopefully, to dry out. Or you're taking a shot at 40 yards, whether every grain burned or not at 40 yards may not matter. But you start to really you get snow on it and it's drawing in, it basically inerts your powder. Whereas Blackhorn 209, the powder substitute, are smokeless. It has hydrophobic properties. So if you were to take a drop of water and place it next to a small pile of Blackhorn 209, it would just sit there next to the Blackhorn 209 or to the smokeless powder. Whereas if you took and put a drop of water next to one of those Pyrex pellets, like almost touching, it would actually draw like a magnet to the Pyrex because that's just a property of that powder. Which again, we're getting deep into the nerd stuff, but that's why.
okay.
But
And the
that's
powder
a
and the
big
powder
deal.
packs. It is a big deal. And the powder, when you're putting it in and you pack it down, there's no room to break down. There's no room for any of that. It compresses the same every time.
No. Keep going. No. Sorry.
So it compresses the same every time. So when you're seating the bullet, me personally, I want to know that if I went to the range and I shot it and I get a little anal about it, like I want to hit a quarter. And if I'm hitting that quarter, I want to know I'm hitting that quarter because I'm an aim small, miss small kind of guy. But when I'm tracking, it's like, all right, I know I'm on I have an 8-inch pie plate to hit. If I can hit a quarter, I can hit anywhere on that pie plate and that thing's dead. I want to know that. Oh, it did it again. So yeah, I mean, for me, that consistency, and for most people, that consistency is just worth it. And
So for the everyday outdoorsman, my question is: so we're so used to putting the tabs in, boom, 2 tabs, bullet.
yep,
What when you're going to using a woodsman's arm and having to use the black horn or the bighorn and whatever you said,
yep,
that stuff.
Blackhorn,
Yeah, all right, I was
Blackhorn or
right.
smokeless, yeah.
I don't know when I said it, it just didn't sound right. So when you do the smokeless, are you measuring out like old school Pyrex, like measuring out kind of that kind of thing, or is there a simplistic way to do that? I think that's one fear of going to smokeless.
So it's super easy actually. So it's just like any other technology. You go 10 years ago, it was expensive to buy powder scales and to do all this stuff.
Oh
But like
yeah.
I bought a Hornady powder scale for like $23 on Amazon. I then let's see if I have one with me. I'm at my work desk, so I don't know if I have one. No, I don't. I have these little test tubes that I measure out by weight. I always
Mm-hmm.
do weight because again, I'm an engineer. I want the consistency. Weight is more accurate. I measure out, pour out into the scale 77 grains or 47, whatever it is. Pour that into a little plastic test tube, and I carry that. So then, say I take a shot and I need a follow up shot or I miss or whatever it happens to be. It's just take the barrel, there it goes, in you go with the bullet, and you're good to go. It really is very, very simple.
You
So,
got to take the lid
yeah,
off with your mouth though.
exactly. You gotta. You got to go mountain man style.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
That's funny because you're saying about shooting a quarter, and it made me think. Could you imagine like George Washington and the boys crossing the Delaware with some Woodman arms?
Yeah, they would have shot him from the boats. They wouldn't have to cross shit. Like, well, what's funny? So I went over to the Kittery Trading Post, and they had me do a small seminar of the differences between traditional muzzleloaders, like old school muzzleloaders, and now. And I was doing research, and I was talking to actually a guy from Gettysburg. The way that they used to say a gun was accurate is they would take one of their muzzleloaders, which at that time was hand forged, a flintlock hand forged, and if they could hit a target the size of a man at 100 yards, just hit it, not lethally. If they could just hit a target the size of a man at 100 yards, that was a good rifle.
Yeah.
And ours could hit the same hole at
Yeah.
100 yards.
Instead of minute of angle, it's minute of man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Minutemen. That's how they got that name. Not really.
Plus, back then though, they were all lined up, so you didn't have to shoot the man you were aiming at. You just had to hit one of them.
You just send a volley. Well, that and the guns were like six. I think it was 6 feet, 10 pounds. It was
Yeah,
insane. So,
So the days of using stuff like this
dude.
is over.
no, all that. No, I'm actually shocked. I think I was the only guy who had that stuff still. I have a Tennessee
No,
Po' boy I play with.
no, this was from my first inline ever when I was 15 years old. Like, dude, I still have it. I don't even know. Do they even make these things? Like, do they even make these anymore?
I think
Not that type. They do, but the nicer ones. Man, that looks
Dude,
like a
this thing's
McDonald's toy.
20 something years old. Like that's what this is. And we would measure out with this, dude. This is what we measured out. We would, you loosen this up and you'd be like, all right, I need 100 grains. All right, 100 grains right here. Then we
Yeah.
would take and we put some Pyrex in there, and you take this, you go like those
that looks like
days are.
something they sell at the corner gas station in the hood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
it does. It looks, it
There
sure
you
You know,
does. Yeah. Not that we know what that is. Actually, I'm in Maine. I can say whatever. So.
yeah, us too. We're in Connecticut, so it doesn't
Oh
matter.
yeah.
But like, dude, it's crazy. Like, these are these things that we used to have to. I mean, we'd have to carry around all the virtually this whole bag. I'd have to put in my backpack so I could get through a muzzleloader hunt. I mean,
Dude,
like,
I can't imagine the stress of, say you take a shot and you need a follow up, and now you're dicking around with that stuff. I mean, good lord, that would
well,
be
I mean, like, dude,
stressful.
you'd always have. My thing is, you'd always have like extra prime. Like, these are the nipples for the
Hmm.
number 9
For the cap
primers. Like,
locks.
dude, like the days of that, and how many times I remember as a kid. I remember I climbed up in this pine tree, and probably at the time one of my biggest bucks, when I was a kid, right? The biggest buck I had ever shot at by the time I was 18 years old comes in, and it's snowing and everything else, and it's my first inline. It was a old night, and I'm sitting in this tree, and this deer comes in, and it's coming through the snow, and I'm in this pine tree, and I'm laying there, and I go to shoot, and it just goes, psh, and I'm like,
Mm.
so now you gotta pull out your
Oof.
pocket knife, pop the number 9 off, then you gotta put another one on, and then you go, and nothing happens. Do it again. I mean, dude, and then you're in a tree, and then finally I shoot one time and it goes, and I'm like, what?
Oh.
And it was all moisture. It was moisture inside of the
Yep.
gun from that condensation of being out when it's cold. It was in my warm truck, and I got out and it was cold, and it caused condensation. And I don't know how many times it would happen to me as a muzzleloader, and it kind of and then they went to the tabs and all the other stuff. So
Mm.
now you're tenfold from what it was, and it was only 15 years ago, 20 years ago that it was
Well,
like that.
absolutely, and it's crazy because you nailed it. I mean, Pyrodex with the moisture, and also it's dirty. I mean, when you think of muzzle loading, people would say I'd shoot 3-4 times, have to clean the whole thing. When we went up to hunt stock, we had up at the shooting range. We had a Patriot for people to shoot. We actually had the Northwoods Whitetail Edition, which was only 20 inches. We had a target at 125 yards away all day with a little 20-inch barrel. Boom, ting, smokeless. And we shot, I think it was 250 something times. I can't remember the
Mm-hmm.
exact count. We
Wow,
never cleaned it once
that's
the
insane.
entire time. It
That's
just kept
insane.
going. It's crazy. Like you said, 10 years ago, guys were still buying the kits from Cabela's. You know what I mean? 10, maybe it's 15 now, 15 years
Yeah.
ago. It's It's crazy.
Well, it's nuts because how many times, and I've been this guy before I kind of dove into the world of muzzleloaders, but like you would go into the closet in September and you go grab your muzzleloader out and the thing looked like it had been in the Bering Sea for
It was
15
rusted as
years,
shit. Yeah,
all rusted.
absolutely.
Dude, I remember soaking those things in oil and everything else. You're like, oh damn, like I don't know, maybe I should buy a new gun. Like this sucks,
Right.
like
Yeah. By the time I'm done with this thing, I could have worked 4 or 5 hours and just
yeah.
bought a damn new one, whatever it ended up being. I actually have an uncle he's super into traditional. He's from New Hampshire, and he's so traditional. He's like, "Oh, yep. After I'm done shooting, I clean the whole thing and cover it with bear grease." And I'm just like, "Dude, Uncle Mike, what the hell?" Like, when I'm done with mine, I put it in the safe and don't even look at it again.
Mhm.
Like,
Or the days of being at the range trying to target shoot and you're trying to sight them in and the thing you shoot it twice and then the third bullet flies so now you got to clean the goddamn thing to
Oh,
get now
Mhm.
you're trying to put it
dude.
back on the target.
Or the amount of
Well, you
force, like
can't.
you
Yeah,
start putting it down,
yeah,
Yeah.
you're freaking white knuckling it. We
yeah.
shot 250 times. It was just as buttery smooth, But dude, I've done it where like I think I got one more bullet in this thing, and you are freaking wrestling with this thing to get that thing in there.
We'll talk about a pipe bomb. You're
Yeah,
forcing
absolutely.
rounds and stuff into something that's not supposed to
That
fit there.
that
Talk about
doesn't want it anymore.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's nuts to me. Like I don't know. I'm just so glad that the technology is coming to what it is today. I mean,
Oh,
in
absolutely.
something of what it is. So
Yeah, super
I guess
thankful.
my question for you is like, what Woodsman Arms? How do they go about finding them? What do they cost? Like, what is the turnaround time on something like this?
Mhm.
Because it's virtually a custom rifle.
Right. So basically, if you wanted them, you can go right online. You can go on woodmanarms.com and you can pick, you go right to, shop muzzleloaders, hit Patriot G3, and it's a la carte. You go there. So it's preloaded with the, you kind of the generic or recommended, 1 in 24 twist, 24-inch. Those are very common. But you also can hit the drop down and say, I already know I do want the 1 in 18, or hey, I want the carbine 22-inch instead of the 24, or etc. But you go right on there, just like you would for Amazon, fill it out, create an account, buy it, and again, depending on where you live, I mean, in Maine, they ship it to your house. If
Hmm.
some like New Jersey is FFL, so obviously we work with you with that. But a lot of places, muzzleloaders are not considered firearms. We just ship it to your house.
All right. So what one should I get? 22, 24, or 26?
What's your farthest shot?
Oh, 100 yards.
You don't even look at the 26 because there's no reason. This is my mentality with it. So I track with a 24, and the reason that is because I love carbines. They're fine. I mean, I shoot my bar. I cut down to a carbine, but the weight of the gun at 24 inches is only 5.5 pounds. So the amount of velocity extra and the performance for 2 inches of hollow tube I get versus cutting down to 22, I'd rather just keep the extra. That's me personally, but there's plenty of guys. Actually, I was joking with Lanny, and I've joked with Hal Blood about this before. It's amazing how many people cling to different things, like, oh, Lanny Benoit shot huge bucks, or Hal Blood shot huge bucks. Well, they were eating meatloaf sandwiches and using a 7600, so that must be how you shoot the big bucks. It's like they're also really fucking good hunters. That's a factor. Like, it's funny what people cling to. So like, it's personal preference. At 100 yards, I mean, I like the 24, but for you, if you like carbines better, I would go with the 22.
What
So
What are you losing in muzzle velocity with those 2 inches?
You're like 50 feet per second. It's not a lot. Basically, I just go back to, that one guy, which I'm not capable of doing, but he shot one with a 24-inch at 400 yards. I want to be able to know that I can do that. I'm sure the 22-inch can do, actually, I know it can do 200, no problem, but I'd rather carry an extra ounce of barrel. You know what I mean?
so my question is so if you're on the website for these guys, so they pick
hmm
like say so smokeless, is it Patriot or Patriot G3 that you'd be able to get it in a smokeless?
Patriot G3.
Okay, so you do a G3, you pick your barrel length, right? So you
hmm
do 24 and then it comes up and it says Patriot G3 barrel assembly.
Yep.
Then you click on that. You pick your barrel, right? We're saying 1 in 24, 45
Go.
cal. Go ahead.
You went up to, just because I can't see what you're doing. You went up. You hit shop muzzleloaders and then Patriot
Yeah.
V3. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Continue. Yep.
Yep. So 1 in 24 is the recommended, right?
Mhm.
Barrel length should be 24 inches, right? So you
Mhm.
add it. You add it right to your cart.
Yep.
It's saying 20 week leak. Okay, cool. Oh, it's not
Yep.
letting you add it to cart for some reason.
Do you have an account?
No, you gotta make one. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
you got to make an account.
Oh
But
man, I
the
was
only
gonna
other
buy
thing,
one while we were doing this, but I guess I'll
I,
have to wait. No,
I mean, I
just
could
kidding.
tell a moose. I could tell a moose hunting story while you're making an
No,
account.
no, just kidding. I'm messing
But
with you. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
the only other
ahead.
thing you got to do is, so it comes stock with the breech plug made for black powder and black powder
Yep.
substitutes, which is the Blackhorn 209.
Yep.
If you want to shoot smokeless, you would add that to cart. You would then go to breech plugs and add the mid pressure. It's called the mid pressure breech plug. That is the breech plug that's made for smokeless.
For you that's not tech savvy, can you just like call and have them make and design a gun for you, like over the phone,
Uh,
or they
we are
make
trying
you
to.
kind of do it?
Well, no, basically, if you can call the number, and then we can help you walk through it. The only thing that we tell people, because obviously our lead times is anywhere from 20 to 25 weeks, is Timmy takes a lot of those calls, and he spends over half his day on the phone. But when he's on the phone, he's not building guns. So
Right.
we're still a small shop. We are expanding. Just hired a guy to help us with the stocks. Pretty soon we're going to be hiring another firearms assembler. So anybody interested in the area and is technologically savvy, be watching out for that. We're going to be posting for that fairly soon. But until then, we only have a couple guys making the guns.
Yeah,
So so
that's super cool.
Do you need
yeah,
any
it's fun.
testers?
Yeah, you need
Any
testers.
test? We got plenty of those.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what, because I run the social media, so obviously I'll be posting, hey, send me pictures of bucks you shot and stuff like that. I got to tell you, a little bit of humble pie that I eat every single time, where it's like a guy has a gun that I designed and he's shooting bucks way bigger than I even ran into this year. You know what I mean? Like, I went tracking this year. I caught up with a couple sixes, nothing crazy, bunch of. I didn't shoot a buck this year because I'm just not interested in smaller deer. Like I'd
Hmm.
rather, and I fall into the same trap. A lot of people do between Facebook, but also the fellas I'm hanging out with. Lanny and Timmy and all these guys. Like, even like, and I shouldn't do this, and I know I shouldn't, but like, you run into like 160-pound deer ish, and you're looking, and you're just like, God, that's still not as big as I want to be shooting. You know what I mean? So, I know that I'm at fault for that, because at the end of the season, you're like, you know what, I would have been happy with that deer. I should have shot it. So, but that's the reality. So,
Yeah, you're surrounding yourself with better people than what you are. You're going to become better. That's just the way it
iron
goes, man.
sharpens iron. It is
That's
it
it.
is amazing. So,
And anything else is a stone.
That's right.
absolutely, no, that's cool.
Well, John, one last question before we kick this thing off is what drives you outdoors?
If I were to pick what drove me outdoors, I kind of mentioned before, I'm a non-traditional hunter. No one in my family hunted. So when I got into hunting, I went all in. And I mean, clearly, I'm a guide. I do all this now. That's all I do now, is I do hunting, I do guns. And so what I would say drives me outdoors is the the drive to master something that is unmasterable. To be able
Mm.
to, like everyone always says, I learn something every time I'm in the woods. I'm looking for those things that I didn't know last time, because you reach a point, and I'm in a unique situation where I remember my first hunt, and I remember all the mistakes I made, because I was 18 or 19 years old, my very first hunt. So when I go in the woods, I'm looking for the thing. Like, here's a little something for people. Um, this, I'm sure you guys know this, but it's very common. Like, if you're in the woods, you're trying to locate good food. Listen for blue jays. Have you ever heard of that?
Hmm.
So yeah, listen for blue jays, because they'll go to the freshest acorns, and where the freshest acorns are, the deer are going to be. Stuff like that, or those little nuggets. When you're in the forest, when that's anything. When I'm beaver trapping, turkey hunting, I'm looking for the things that make even someone who's seasoned go, oh, that changes my game. I'm looking for those game changers. That's what drives me.
Mm, I love it. I absolutely
Mm.
love it. Well, why don't you let us know where we can find Woodman Arms and all the great things to follow along on social media.
Sure, absolutely. So we have a Facebook and Instagram, both of them, Woodman Arms. If you're looking for guns, obviously ordering one online. We also have several retailers that we ship to. So basically, just keep watching us. And please, if you have any successful hunts, please send me pictures. You'll get featured on our website. Coming up, we have in Maine, we have a native spring bear hunt. I'm actually going on one, so there's a spring bear season coming up there.
Mm.
Please, anyone hunting, then they're using them. I live for the hunting stories, and I love to post them. So I look forward to seeing them.
That's awesome. Well, guys, we really appreciate it. Make sure to check out Woodsman's Arms. And as always, you can follow along and find them down below is all the great links. And make sure to check them out for your upcoming hunting needs. And for everybody else, we appreciate you. And thanks for taking the ride right here on the Outdoor Drive.